It's 6:30, everybody. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. First item on our agenda is review and approval of the minutes from the prior meeting. If anybody has any additions or corrections, if they'd be kind enough to share them. Otherwise, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would handle the minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 conditional use permits this evening, all for fences, all with a public hearing. So we will go ahead and kick it off. Forgive me if I misenunciate anybody's name. It is not intentional. First conditional use permit for a fence tonight is for Fetkether.
Yep, so I'll just pull it up here on the board. Most of these tonight are going to be pretty standard, putting it on the property line or within that 3 foot. So for this one here, there's just 2 neighbors though, so one on the north side and one on the west side. And then, so with this one, there would just be the conditions of getting the access agreements and then the acknowledgement of the easement on the rear property line there.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions? If not, we will go ahead and open up the conditional use permit for the Fetkether fence. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, if they'd be kind enough to come up to the podium and start with your name and address, please. If there are no comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Got a feeling I'm going to be saying this a lot this evening, but it would appear that the process is working.
Let's see. So this fence actually was put up already. And unfortunately, there's some complications because there were already existing fences, chain link fences that were put up, and now this is a privacy fence. So this property owner up here to the north, Linda Andrus, did call me, and I did go out to the property this morning just so I could take some pictures. So you can see here what that looks like now with the chain link fence, and then the privacy fence right behind it that was just put up recently. So she was very upset about this situation here and is saying that it's going to be like very, very difficult for anyone to maintain the area in between the fence if weeds grow up in between or anything. So back here there's a bit of a gap, but even this distance is maybe like 1.5 feet in real life. But beyond that, she indicated that she wasn't going to be okay with even allowing an access agreement in the first place. So, and then this is just the rear property line as well. So you can see this chain link fence along it with the privacy fence put up right up next to it. So that's what I've got there, pictures.
So, I can't believe somebody actually did that. Forgive me, I'm trying to process it for a minute. So, there's anywhere from 1.5 feet to a couple inches gap between the 2 fences?
Yeah, not even like 1 inch, I would say. Like, it's pretty much touching. Right there. On this side, yeah.
How did they get it up without going on that other side, on the...
Oh, she indicated that the fence company did go onto her property when it was put up, and I did, when I was out there, there were holes and flags that were left behind and everything, so it was not left in a very good condition.
So it's really fresh?
Tough to say, but
Yeah.
within the last month or 2.
So we know up front that we're not going to have an access agreement there. Does it even make sense to grant the conditional use permit in this case?
I don't think so.
Because you're not going to be able to execute it, right? Or at least the conditions we normally put on a conditional use permit. And I would assume that puts the homeowner that put up the privacy fence in a situation where they've got to push it back a little bit. Unless there's any other ideas.
No, all you could do is, either they have to move it 3 feet off the property line, or they have to get an access agreement. And if
She said she won't
if she said she's not doing it, we can't issue. I mean, I guess you could.
It would,
It'd be,
it would be an exercise in just going through a process we know is gonna fail.
yeah. Yep.
That's a new one. I think I've been on planning and zoning for 10 years. I don't think I've ever, over 10 years, I don't think I've ever seen that set of circumstances before. Yeah. Any questions, any other thoughts, ideas? If not,
What is the recourse that they have to do?
that would be an interesting one. I would assume, Ian, it starts...
Ian has the answer.
Would start with a
Well-
letter.
Yeah, I mean, we know that if we know in a situation that they're not going to sign off on it, I mean, I would think that they would just have to move it in the 3 feet. That's just what the ordinance says, and there's not really much getting around with it. And then, in this case here, where they like knowingly put the fence up before even getting approved, I mean, that's not the process that was supposed to be followed.
But we ran into this a couple months ago, and the homeowner had to...
And then that's what I told this neighbor here, that there was a situation that came up before, and then they did end up moving their fence. But the property owner on the other side, I'm not sure what their thoughts are on the fence being up against their property line. I don't know about that. There's one back here.
Well, I guess we
So,
know...
the question I have, sorry,
No, please.
we know the one to the south side will not approve it. We don't know the one to the east. So would they, if the one would approve it and one wouldn't, could they leave the one on the property line, and so then they would need the conditional use?
Right, so I mean, I would say approve the conditional use permit, even though we know, at least for now, that
Yep.
the conditions aren't going to be satisfied.
And then they could have that side moved in 3 feet, and then they wouldn't have to come back to try to approve the other, if they, you see where I'm
I
going?
see what you're saying, or is it cleaner to try to table it and reach out to the two homeowners here on both sides of the fence to see if we can't get a response?
Well, we already know one answer.
Yeah, we already know
I bet
what
you'll
it
get
is.
an answer on the other one, too.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you
Yep.
don't. But at least we have a clear picture of...
And I'm okay tabling it until the next meeting, if we want to reach out to them, to the other.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
do that.
I mean, you're doing the work, Ian. I guess I can see it going either way. So if you have a preference, or...
I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay.
The fence is already up, so, yeah.
That's my recommendation, then.
Motion to table.
We do have a motion to table. From Dan, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That would be our recommendation. Would you send that picture out to the group, Ian, in whatever mechanism you used to, that particular picture, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that yeah.
Next item up, another conditional use permit for a fence, this time for the Knutson property.
I'll just bring it up here on the map. So this one has quite a few different neighbors. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 actually. So yeah, it kind of hit hard with the access agreements on this one. But just the same thing here, acknowledgement of the easement that runs along the rear property line, and then the access agreements for each of the neighbors.
Have you received any correspondence from the neighbors, sir, before I open this?
I haven't heard anything from the neighbors on this one.
Any questions on this side of the table?
It's not already up? Good
I
question.
don't know. Hope not.
other questions? No? If not, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. This one is for conditional use, this one is for the conditional use permit for a fence for the Riley Knutson property. Once again, if you have any questions or comments, if you'd be kind enough to come up to the podium. If there are no comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Any thoughts on this one, gentlemen?
So we went through this last month too. If we don't hear anything, what's the next step?
We don't hear anything from the people that on the adjoining. My understanding is it's almost builder beware. So, I believe that came up in reference with the Resch fence, and because they're up against a rental property from an out-of-state property owner.
Yeah.
If that was what you're referring to?
Yeah.
It's still on them to get the
Yep, access agreements.
access agreement.
It is. So, I don't see a reason not to approve this one and just carry on with the process.
I would make that motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would be our recommendation for the Knutson fence. Third fence, conditional use permit for the McLean property.
All right, this one is very, very simple, just a small little fence on one side of the property there. Let's see. But there is still an easement on that side, so still gets that condition at least. And then the access agreement too, of course.
That's a utility easement then?
Yeah, I believe it's utility easement.
Any questions? No?
So if it is a utility easement, then does it have to be something that's removable?
Well, any fence is removable.
Yeah, that's what the acknowledgement is for these. So they're just acknowledging that if the easement ever has to get used for anything, your fence can be dismantled at the property owner's expense. That's what
Pretty
it
much
is.
every property has an easement of some sort.
Yeah.
It's just a whiskey run.
5, some are 10, some are 20, depends. What? Yeah.
If there's no other questions, I'll open up the public hearing. This one is for the McLean fence. Once again, if you have any comments, if you'd be kind enough to come up to the podium. If not, I will close the public hearing. Here's another one to kind of let the process continue.
I'd make the recommendation to approve.
We have a recommendation to approve. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a recommendation and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would be our recommendation for the McLean property.
Thank you.
Next conditional use permit is for a fence, and forgive me, I would pronounce it Nyston. Thank you. I wasn't gonna pronounce it that way.
All right, so for this one, there actually is already a fence that's put up on this property line and this property line here. What the property owner wants to do is just put a fence on this rear line back here. So, because this is a right-of-way back here, it's not owned by any specific property owner. No access agreements for this one, but since it is on the property line, it still needs the conditional use permit. And there is an easement back there too, so.
So the two on the side though, would they?
I think they were put up before,
Or would they still need the neighbor on either side to, even though the fence is there? I mean,
oh,
whose fence is it?
it's not this property owner's.
But if it's on their property line, wouldn't we be better off if they had a access agreement, just in case they had to go around? Even though it's not their fence, when
Oh, I
they sell,
see.
how are they gonna, who's gonna justify whose fence it is when somebody sells? If it's on the property line, is what. I mean, that one's kind of a
Sure.
question that we've never come across, I was just curious. I guess it wouldn't hurt to have the access agreement on either side, even if, 'cause
I think I'd feel comfortable making it a strong recommendation. I
Yes.
don't know about a requirement at this stage in the game.
but yeah, I mean, even though it's not her fence, she's connecting to it, which now,
I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I don't know how that would work either. I do feel like we should at least make a strong recommendation that, which I would think the adjoining properties would want to be in, because they would almost want that so they could get in there to... That's what I feel.
Like I said, I don't think we could make it a requirement.
No, but it sure wouldn't
Strong.
hurt to have a strong recommendation that they at least ask.
Yeah.
Any more questions from this side? If not, I'll open up the public hearing. This would be for the conditional use permit for the Nyston property. If there are no comments, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. General thoughts would be to approve with,
Strong recommendation to have the access agreement on the two side properties. That'd be my recommendation.
that would be our approval?
Motion, yeah.
Motion to approve?
Yeah.
With
that added.
condition?
With conditions.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Take care of that fence. Next up, number 7, conditional use permit for a fence for the Hain property.
All right, and this one here, just, fence going around here, both of the sides and, the rear property line. Let's see here. Although, let's see here. Okay, so this rear line is actually going to be at least 3 feet off, so it's just the two neighbors.
Oh, okay.
North and south.
I'll clear that up, yep.
And there are no existing homes on those lots?
I believe they're still empty, yeah. Or, no, sorry. I mean, this house exists, of course.
Yeah.
I think this one is the house. I'm not sure about this one up here. Because it's still owned by South Fork Homes. Let's see.
Any questions, gentlemen? If not, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. This one is for the conditional use permit for a fence for the Hain property. There are no comments. I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Another one to let the process run its course. Look for a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve.
A motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Our recommendation for the Hain property.
Thank you.
Next up, number 8, conditional use permit for a fence for the Norrie property.
All right, so just bring it up here on the map. Property owner is requesting to put the fence on or within 3 feet of all the side property lines and the rear property line as well. So with this one, there's 4 different neighbors.
And I believe we have letters here from each of the 4 neighbors indicating they would not sign an access agreement for this conditional use permit, specifically Mr. Jerry Berg, Mr. Todd Brusewitz, Mr. Cody Snow, and Mr. Stephen Johnson. Everybody has a copy of this?
Yes. Yes.
All right, wonderful. Any other questions? No? With that said, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for the conditional use permit for the Nori fence. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, if they'd be kind enough to come up to the podium, please.
I guess I'd like my 4 neighbors that have objections to come up and kind of explain those first. I have no idea what's in the letters that they provided to you guys, and I would like a copy of those, just as public record.
I believe that's public record, isn't it?
Well, it will be. We just received these today.
I've got an extra
Okay.
There's a copy here too.
I've got an extra copy, sir.
I guess instead of maybe taking time to me read them, if you guys have read them, maybe you guys could have a discussion, and then maybe the folks that have the issues can come up and explain themselves.
I don't know if this would be a forum for you and your neighbors, sir. You may want to get together outside of this meeting and have those discussions. I don't know if we can somehow negotiate a conversation between all the homeowners. But if there is some value in tabling it, feeling that feelings are going to change and giving you 30 days to have those conversations, we can definitely talk about it next month.
I'm of the opinion that my neighbors don't want to talk to me about this, and that if they're going to express comments, it should be probably done at this meeting. I feel like I'm at a major disadvantage. I'm not saying I want to table this right now. I've got some things I would like to say. I'm not sure if you guys came to express your concerns, or you came just to listen and all your concerns are in writing, or where you're at, so. It's very unusual. There's been 29 people through this fence process, and never been an issue like this before, so.
I mean, they just talked about 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, they did, but each house has 3 to 5 neighbors involved, so out of the number of people that have already been through this process, and most of these people have asked for fences on the property line. But anyways, if you've got something you'd like to say, go ahead. Would you guys like to discuss any of the issues that they
Tell us
brought up?
tell us what you have in mind, and we'll respond.
So you want me to go first then? Okay.
I have nothing to respond to at this point.
That's fine.
Just bear in mind, sir, I can't force anybody in this room to say anything. I mean, we try to...
Oh, no, I get that.
Okay, we
I
try
get
to
that.
promote a public,
Right,
conversation.
and I just would think if they put something in writing, they'd be willing to talk about it, but maybe not. And maybe you guys haven't had a chance to read this yet, to have any discussion yet, maybe you have. So, let me approach you guys, and, we'll talk about this. All right. So we've applied to install...
And you're Mr. Are you Mr. Norrie?
I'm Mr. Norrie,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Mr. Norrie at 505 Fourth Avenue.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I have a question here? Is the mic system on, really? I can't hear him too well, he's talking that way, so.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
have to talk like closer.
All right.
Perfect, thank
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so I own the property, 505 Fourth Avenue. I've owned it for about 18 years. My 80-year-old mother has now moved into the property and plans to live the rest of her life out there. So the reason for the fence is primarily for safety issues, keep dogs from coming up on her, that sort of thing. So we applied to install about 300 feet of fence, okay? Division fence, okay? Division fence is a fence that is inside my property line, okay? And I'm proposing, based on what statutes are typical and customary, 2 to 8 inches off the property line. Division fence, we are responsible for 100% of the cost to build the fence and maintain the fence going forward. Unlike a fence that goes on the property line, A fence that goes in the property line, according to Minnesota statute 344-03, is called a partition fence. A partition fence, we are not asking for that. A partition fence, based on state statute, is shared benefits and shared equal costs. My neighbors have expressed some concerns about a fence in the property line, and I heard them. I don't want to go down that road. To put a fence in the property line could create a whole lot of future problems. So I'm proposing a fence on my own property, okay? The access agreement I have reviewed, it's not fitting for a division fence installed inside my property lines, because I'm not asking to go onto my neighbor's property to build the fence. I'm not asking to go onto my neighbor's property to maintain a fence. The access agreement is so open that it would literally allow your neighbor to come over and maintain his fence once a week if he wanted to. If the neighbor decides the person that installed the fence decides they want to paint their fence a couple boards at a time, the way that access agreement reads is that you've got to let them on the property all the time. I think that's really unfair for the owner of the adjacent property to have to agree to that at all going forward. I think it's completely unfair, and I think any one of my neighbors that would say, I don't want to agree to have Mr. Norrie have access at any time to come over and maintain the fence, I think that's fair. I think it'd be outrageous, and then that agreement goes on and on and on to the next people perpetually. I think it'd be reasonable for a neighbor maybe up front to agree on a handshake, yeah, I'll let you build the fence, but once the fence is up, you're not coming on my side to do much anything. I'm just thinking that as far as reasonable. The idea of needing to maintain a fence, I did confirm with Ian that the city has never had to write a citation to anybody for lack of fence maintenance. And I'm talking the fence itself. He said there were some citations that were issued for people that didn't cut their grass at the fence line. But, so I don't believe there is really an issue that in this community that people have been unable to maintain their fences to the point that they've fallen down, to the point that we need an agreement that goes on perpetually for a lifetime to let the neighbor on your property to maintain the fence. I don't want to build a fence, I don't intend to build a fence, and I need access to my neighbor's property to build or maintain. I plan to build a fence that's in sections, out of plastic or metal, that put the posts in, it'll be pretty on both sides, and it will not need maintenance or need access to the neighbor's property to build. The access agreement currently is vague. I think the only person that should sign that is somebody who is agreeing to a fence on the property line, where it's a partition fence, and you've got a lot of issues to deal with going forward on who's gonna pay for repairs and whose fence is it. I'm not looking at a situation like that. I accept 100% responsibility of maintenance and building my fence. I'm not gonna ask any of my neighbors to participate in any costs or repairs going down the road. Because I've got 4 neighbors that have objections, and this is a really rare situation, I don't want to get into all the muck about what has happened to cause this. I'm going to talk in generalities. I'm not going to use anybody's names as far as who might have, whatever might be going on or happened to go on. Before the meeting, so basically what I'm asking for, you guys, is I'm asking for a variance to this ordinance. And it's going to be the cause and the reason for that. The basis for that is going to be laid out by the reasons that I've been told by my neighbors why they want me to set the fence back 3 feet. Not one has to do with maintenance of a fence. Okay? Before I walked into this meeting, I knew that I had 2 or 4 neighbors that I verbally communicated with that said they had issues about the fence on the property line, which I respected and I want to address. I don't want it on the property line. I don't want anybody to have a bad experience with any fence that I put up at all. Okay? That's not my intentions. But I do believe that my neighbors are using the fence ordinance that this city has. It's unusual. There's not another one on the books in the state of Minnesota that has 3-foot setback. I believe my neighbors are using that 3-foot setback rule as a weapon to discriminate against me for their personal reasons. Okay, none of the reasons that they've come up with for a fence setback 3 feet have anything to do with any of the intent of the ordinance. The recent objections that the neighbors have provided me include complaining about a 2020 incident where 2 of my neighbors knowingly trespassed and cut down my trees, causing property damage, but later took responsibility. Okay, that's important. I put this to bed, I'd forgotten about it. My neighbor took responsibility, he paid for what happened, it was over. But it's not over. We're here today with objections about my fence, and it's all about past neighbor disputes, which is something I think the city council wants nothing to do with, and nobody wants to allow those disputes. They don't want to have this has created an avenue for disputes. So, a fence on my property. Oh, another objection was, if I put a fence on my property, it's a liability to my neighbor. My neighbor could hit it with his mower, and then I might sue my neighbor. Doesn't make sense to me, but my fence is going to be a liability to my neighbor. These are reasons that were given to me. In addition to, this was all about, like I said, an incident that happened where neighbor knowingly trespassed and cut down trees. Okay, had a survey done, knew where the property line was. The third reason that I was told by a different neighbor was that a fence on my property could add value financially to his property if it was 3 feet closer to my house. It might cause loss to his value of his property if the fence was closer. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it turns out it's about money. Okay, I talked to the big builder in town, and I asked him, I said, if someone's gonna buy a lot to build a house, and they have to give up 3 feet all the way around the property of their house knowingly up front, does that affect value? And they said, absolutely, and they said, we have the ability to correct that if we own all the lots, so we don't have these problems, because it affects value. So this ordinance essentially is allowing my neighbors to affect the value, dollar amount of my property, or maybe increase the value of their property by where my fence goes. The fourth reason that I was told by one of my neighbors was that we have political differences, that we might be on a different political team. I said, are you kidding me? This is about red or blue? And followed it up with, it was about my sister and my mom. Okay, so none of the neighbors' objections relate to the intent of the fence ordinance or maintenance concerns, not one of them.
And forgive me, sir, just so I'm crystal clear, where are you putting the fence? Are you putting it on the property
No.
line, or are you putting it 3 feet back?
I'm not putting it 3 feet back, because if I put it 3 feet back, I give up 900 square feet or more of land, which is equivalent to 2 two-car garages that are on the outside of my property, that I cannot, just want to let you know, I cannot control it, I cannot keep it safe, I cannot keep a neighbor's dog from going all the way to the back of their own property and digging holes back there. I can't keep someone from breaking their ankle in that hole. And when my neighbors already trespassed, and I had 3 neighbors believing that trespassing on my property was okay, they believe that I am in the wrong for calling the police and reporting this incident, then, and the police want nothing to do with it. The police were not able to help me at all when I was trespassed and I had my property damaged. They told me, hey, he took responsibility, he's gonna pay you for it, let it go. So that is the problem with the 3 feet, and there are other problems, and if you allow me to put together a written but a written variance request, I will put extreme detail in there, but right now I want to keep it kind of brief.
Who are you giving it up to, sir?
The land,
Yeah.
how am I losing use to my 3 feet on the outside of my fence?
You said you were giving it up. I guess, when you said you're giving it up, are you surrendering it to your neighbors in your mind?
Well, basically, in my mind at that point, if it's on the outside of the fence, it's 3 feet on the outside of the fence. I don't want my mom, Edie, to go on the outside of the fence to have to take care of any property out there. So I would permanently landscape it, either put concrete or rock or wood chips or something back there on my 3 feet so that it needs no maintenance. Okay, and if, at that point, I don't have a use of it, I can't keep people off of it. I can't see it.
Okay, so
And-
you're not
Yeah.
you're not giving it up, is
Okay,
basically what
no.
I'm headed with that. Did I
Okay.
misunderstand that?
No, I am giving it up because I lose my use of it. It's on the outside of my fence, it no longer has any use to me, it turns into a liability.
So-
It's not an asset, it's a
You're saying
liability.
the fence is gonna be within...
I'm asking for a variance, I'm asking for...
I'm trying to understand where
yeah.
your fence is, sir, because if it's
I am-
within 8 inches of the property line, I don't know how you're gonna mow it.
Okay, so there's nothing in the current ordinance that has to do with yard care, and the fence ordinance has nothing to do with providing access for mowing. And if I can't mow what's in the back of my yard, the city has a solution where they will come by and mow it and bill me. And so there's already a solution in place. So the city is not required to provide me an opportunity so that I can mow a piece of land back there. If I had land behind my fence, I would want no maintenance at all. I would want to make it rock, and I'd want to spray it with weed killer from the top, and I don't want to have to maintain property on the outside of my fence. It's a liability. And I can give you a lot of other reasons why that really is a bad idea. It also allows people to, let's say the neighbors wanted to pick on me, they could throw trash on my property back there, and then they could call on me. I can't protect it. So I have a lot of concerns about the 3 feet. Now, what I think is acceptable is if somebody thought there needed to be enough room for fence maintenance. I've talked to fence contractors. Most of them are already set up to do all the maintenance on my side of the fence. They don't have to go around. But if they did go around, they don't need 3 feet. They might need 8 inches, they might need 12 inches, but they don't need 3 feet. So I'm not sure where the 3 feet came from, but I would like to request a variance. If the variance fails, then what I'd like to do after that is I'd like to sit down with council and see if we can get this ordinance corrected, some of the problems that it has, some of the fact that it even allows for this kind of discrimination to take place.
I am not in a position to tell you to get a variance or not get a variance.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
without going through the process,
Mhm.
getting approval on a variance would be difficult at best. There is a city council meeting here towards the end of the month. There is
Mhm.
an opportunity, I believe there's 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the city council meeting. If you want to have a discussion with the council members, we are just a recommending body to the city council.
Okay?
By all means, do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you've got a simple fence request in front of us.
No, it's not, there's nothing simple about it. You guys haven't had
There's a
anything
lot of
like this
dynamics that
before.
go into this, sir, that go well
Yep.
beyond the scope of this
Exactly,
body.
yep.
And I think there's some issues you need to settle and have not only yourself, but all your neighbors come in here and say those issues are settled. Because...
Well, I'm not sure what settlement looks like, so it's new to me that I owe my neighbors anything, that I have to settle with them. What do they want, financial, what do they want for a settlement from me? I'm not even sure what I've done wrong to them.
Okay.
So if they maybe start the deal and speak up to me and express to me, but right now, I am of the opinion that the 3-foot rule is a violation of my property rights. It affects my value, it affects my neighbors to discriminate against me. So my goal is to correct those problems, and the recommendations that I've had from the city attorney is that the ordinance needs to be changed. She did agree that a variance is gonna be tough. She said it might not be impossible, but to start the process requesting a variance at least gets the process started so everybody can talk about it. You guys can write back on why you are not doing that, and it gets a paper trail started, because eventually, like I said, I do believe my property rights are being violated. I think I'm being picked on and being harassed because I held my neighbors accountable. I'm being bullied by my neighbors because this is highly unusual. Out of the 29 cases that had come up previously, there was 1 chain link fence in a front yard that needed to be moved 3 feet. The other 28 people passed this process with flying colors. Each of them had to get 3 people probably to sign off, each one of them. So we got 90 people that passed this process with no problems. I'm the first one that has allowed, well, not what's allowed, these problems have now surfaced to the top. These are unexpected consequences of the ordinance. But in a reasonable situation, this would never happen.
But it sounds like by your own math, it's working pretty well.
What's that?
It sounds like by your own math, if we've gone through this process, you said 29 times, sir?
Yeah, and there's never been a problem like this before.
So,
Yeah, so this is but there's never been objections either. There's never been a property that 4 neighbors objected.
Well, I'll give you that, I'm not
Yeah,
keeping...
so this is unusual, this is a one of a kind, so this needs to have special, really need to look at this specially. So I don't got much more to say. The fence ordinance 3-foot rule allows neighbors to discriminate and bring personal issues into the fence ordinance. That's what the doors have opened up with this ordinance, has allowed for this. This really doesn't need to be, and it also allows for a lot of problems going forward. It allows for those same neighbors that complained up front to keep complaining about how it's landscaped. If it's not landscaped, is it good or bad? Is it attractive in their eyes? So, the access agreement creates a liability for my neighbors by allowing me, who would build my fence, unreasonable, unlimited access that no Caston resident should sign. No Caston resident should allow their neighbors unlimited access to come over any time of the day, as many times they want to fix the fence. I mean, literally, you could have a neighbor that every year they're checking the screws on the fence, they're staining it constantly, they're painting it 5 boards at a time, and you've changed their deed to allow that. So that should be tightened up. I'm not saying that an agreement that allows, if it's on the fence property line, absolutely. If it's on the property line, there should be agreement going forward about who's paying for maintenance, who owns the fence. All that should be in that agreement. It should be more than what it is. What it is more of a liability than an asset, the way that agreement currently reads. A fence setback, and this is when you research fence setback, there's not a 3-foot fence setback anywhere else in Minnesota. This is a one-of-a-kind ordinance. A 3-foot fence setback would be a loss of use of about 900 square feet of yard, equivalent to, like I said, two car garages that would be outside my fence, that would be more accessible for my neighbors to use, and it would look and feel a lot more like my neighbor's yard than mine. People I've talked to that are considering buying a house, they say, well, look out there, and I just assume that's where the property line goes to. There's actually some case law in Minnesota that says you should put the fence line pretty close to the property line, otherwise it confuses people going forward and can cause multiple issues in the future. So, and there's no way I'd be able to keep the property outside the fence safe from trespass, damage, or liability issues, creating a hardship for my 80-year-old mother. Okay, so I'm asking for a variance for that situation, and to prevent issues going forward with the neighbors, to be able to constantly complain about what's going on with that 3 feet. So, we ask that the Planning and Zoning Board consider a written request for a variance of the 3-foot rule, so that in the event that my neighbors are not going to sign the agreement. And it sounds to me like, from what you guys have, we've got 4 neighbors that aren't going to sign the agreement, one of which I've never even met. Okay, one that moved in, I've never even met them before, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if my other neighbors maybe went ahead and told them something and maybe tried to convince them that maybe they should complain too, I don't know. But we'll get to the bottom of all that, because we're going to need to get to the bottom of what's all going on here. So, that's all I got to ask, and I'm sorry if I sound like a griper, but I feel like I'm being taken advantage of by some bullies that are unhappy that I held them accountable for cutting my trees down. And it is 3 of my neighbors that were involved in that. One of them cut them down, one of them asked the other neighbor to cut them down, and the third one is a cheerleader that's just furious at me for holding my neighbors accountable for trespassing. So the whole reason why my neighbors are complaining about my fence being on my own property, and they want to control my rights on my property of my fence and control my property rights. Nothing to do with maintenance of a fence, completely has to do with a past neighbor dispute over cutting my trees down. So, that's what I got. Hopefully my neighbors can come up and tell their side of the story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If anyone else does have anything they'd like to share, by all means, I would beg everyone that we stay away from any sort of political issues among the people here in the room and talk about fences, please, so.
Define political, please.
If you and your neighbor have a challenge over X, Y, Z, or 1, 2, 3 not related to a fence,
Talking political parties.
well, we can go that far, sir, that isn't exactly where my head was at, but, okay. No. My request was, let's talk about a fence, so, as gracefully as I could put it.
I don't really want to do this, but I guess I probably better respond, unfortunately. He brought it up.
I'm the cheerleader, Jerry Berg, back neighbor, 506 Fifth Avenue Northwest. I'm also 80 years old, and I'm the one that has to take care of the other side of the fence, so age comes into it. I guess we're equal. Okay, I got all these notes. I guess it all started, with a tree. It was sawed down, it was a scrap tree that was inhibiting some other trees, literally. It was leaning over the other property and really needed to be taken down, although unfortunately, nobody was there to ask. Mentioned the mother and daughter, they were screaming right at one day I was home. Being the prop, they were relatively new, so I tried to quell things down by showing them where the property line was and stuff. They weren't sure, they were out there citing this, citing that, so I said, I know where it is, so I go out and try to, maintain a equilibrium and calm them down a little bit, but it wasn't to be. That started it all. I don't like being called a bully. I'm not a bully. Brought up the mower damage, that's my concern, and concern is, due to the tree incident, I'm afraid if I do some damage to his property, whether it be a fence or bush that he wants to put around the fence, whatever, he would definitely come and threaten legal action. It's been done before, so I'm confident that would happen in the future. Okay. Talked about breaking an ankle if you're trespassing and stuff. That's one of my big fears also. If he has to come on my property to maintain, he does something, stub a toe or whatever, you know where that's going. He wants to maintain landscaping. I don't know how you maintain landscaping. If you peek over the top and start spraying weed killer, grass killer, whatever, better do it in a calm day. I fear what's going to happen there. I talked about yard care. There is an ordinance, you know what it is. Everybody's supposed to maintain their yards in a safe and sensible manner in the city, whether it's on outside of your fence, it's on your property, it's up to you to maintain it. You mentioned about, I don't know, it's something else, discrimination. Well, this isn't a matter of discrimination, this is a matter of fear of my neighbor, literally. You talked about being bullied. I don't want to be bullied backward either. This is what this is. I guess the bottom line of the fear is there's history of assault that I don't want to get into if I don't have to, but that's what bottom line fear is. I don't think the neighborhood would be safe if things start escalating the way they look like they're going.
I gotta object, he's just making that up at this point, there's no history of assault.
He was kind enough to let you speak, sir, if you'd be kind enough to extend him the same courtesy.
You know,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Okay,
Nice.
I'll
Go
just...
ahead, present it, present what you
Okay.
got.
No, it's probably not the forum to do it, but
Let him come on.
you want me to read it?
You do what you need to do.
Well, I'd rather not, but if you insist, it's up to you.
No.
Okay, I won't.
It wasn't for you.
Yep. Lost my train of thought here, unfortunately. I think that's most of my notes I was scribbling down as he's going here. But anyway, he called me a bully, and I don't appreciate that. I do literally, oh, that was the other thing. On the CUP review item 2, under the first two, there's two of them there in the first paragraph of review items. It says the effects of the proposed use upon health, safety, and general welfare of occupants of surrounding lands. That's one of the things you're supposed to review and evaluate. Well, I literally fear what would happen if that fence was on the lot line. And also that's the reason I don't want to give access to my land, is because he might stub his toe, break his ankle, whatever. Be liability on my side.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? If not, I will close the public hearing.
Can I make another comment?
Is it pertain to a fence, or is it pertain to challenges with your neighbor?
It does pertain to the fence, yeah.
Please.
I wanted to just, you guys saw the objections that Mr. Berg had. You saw that they were unrelated, for the majority, unrelated to fence maintenance. And I just wanted to show that as a example of what this bad ordinance allows neighbors to do. Okay, bring all that stuff in that has nothing to do with a fence. So, I don't want to go on his property. I'm not building the fence on his property. I don't want to ask for a use to get onto his property. I really want to fence my neighbors out of my property. I want to protect my property by putting a fence up. So that's my intention here. So, and as far as somebody slandering somebody and trying to make up some stuff, I appreciate you guys shutting that down, because that was completely typical of what I'm dealing with this neighbor. You know, this rule was made to deal with the lowest common denominator of problems. 1% of the people have problems like this. 99% of the people don't have any problems, and this fence rule for maintenance and allowing someone to do maintenance is catering to the lowest common denominator, okay? And there's an example of what we just, of that situation. So, once again, it's a bad ordinance, and I'm really gonna push to get these problems corrected. I do understand the importance of the ordinance and what it's trying to protect people from, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's not doing what it's intended to do based on what you guys just saw. So, thank you.
Your thoughts, gentlemen? No, forgive me, if I didn't formally close the public hearing, I'd like to go ahead and close the public hearing. There are a lot of issues that were presented that have nothing to do with the city or the planning and zoning board. And I respect that human beings, myself included, played a role in trying to develop a fence ordinance, and since I'm very human and I make mistakes, I'm not going to claim it is a perfect ordinance, but I think it served us pretty well up until this point in time, trying to avoid issues before they happen. I would struggle to approve the conditional use permit, and even if we did, they wouldn't get the access agreements they need to move forward with it. There are other avenues that Mr. Norrie can take if he wants to pursue them. By all means, I'm not here to offer him a sense of direction. I just don't know if this is where you start the process or the conversation.
Well, I guess I would recommend right now that we table it to give staff and then time to review, possibly, look at the ordinance again, in case there's something that can be fine-tuned or not, and, bring it back either to planning and zoning and to talk to the council about it too, and just see if, get the lawyer's input and the engineer's input and make sure.
I mean, if you wanna talk to him on the 26th, if you wanna invite him to the next meeting, by all means, we can, but I've been through enough variances over the years, I don't see an opportunity to...
Well, I just wanna make sure that
Okay.
we're in, the city's in its rights having the 3-foot.
Sure.
Because even if he wanted 8-inch, there's no way you could go on
Yeah.
and maintain off 8 inches. So, I'd like at least staff to look at that and make sure. So I'd like to at least table this, that's my opinion, or can do what they recommend.
I have one more thing to say, and I'm not...
We're done with the public hearing, sir, forgive me.
I'm not stuck on the 8 inches either.
Okay,
If it's
we're done,
reasonable,
we
okay.
are done with the public hearing,
Okay.
sir. I have no problem tabling it, and, yeah, I hope you're right, but
No, but I'd like to...
go through the process.
Yeah, I'd like to go through the process and check every avenue, make sure, is 3 feet too much, I don't know. It doesn't hurt to look, maybe we'll come back and it'll be the same.
So is that a motion to table?
That is my motion to table.
I will second that motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would be our recommendation there, Ian. Our last conditional use permit for a fence is for the Jerome property.
So for this one, just the two side neighbors again. This one here, there is an easement on this back property line, but the property owner wants to put the fence up at least 3 feet off of that side. So just the two neighbors for access agreements, and then acknowledgement of that easement for conditions.
Any questions for Ian? If not, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. This one is for the Jerome permit for a fence. If anyone has anything they'd like to share, if they'd be kind enough to come up to the podium, please. If not, I will close the public hearing. Your thoughts here, gentlemen?
Straightforward to me.
Yep. I don't disagree with you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That would be our recommendation for the final conditional use permit, Ian. Next up, comprehensive plan amendment. This is for the Schramm proposed development. Do you have anything to share there?
Well, so I just included in the packet tonight, Mr. Schramm's official written statement to withdraw his application for the comprehensive plan amendment. So because we have this withdrawal, we don't take any more action on it, but just wanted to give you all an update on that situation.
Mr. Schramm indicate that he might look at another part of town for his development?
Yep, so I do know that Mr. Schramm has been looking at other areas in Caston, and there was one property that seemed pretty attractive to him, so we might be seeing an application for that come forward soon.
Wonderful. And lastly, update on Mr. Wilker's conditional use permit.
Yep, so I did go out to Mr. Wilker's property on May 20th. Just took some pictures, and I'll show them up here on the board. Here, I'll make it bigger. Generally, I would say that the property was in really good condition, even better than it was last year. Even this is the nursery stock area, so you can see still a good number of trees there. This is the rear yard, kind of small in this picture here, but you can see that there's small trees planted all throughout the back there. Let's see, north side yard, got the nice row of trees for screening there. There's no houses there yet, but just north of there will be the new Oscar Meadows, once that gets constructed. Let's see here. And then this is the south side, so another year of growth on all of these trees and other plants back here, so you can see that it's even more screened since it was last year. I think it's looking really, really nice, actually. It's just the front there, still some pretty good screening. Yeah, that's what I've got for pictures. Let's see. So just, I said before, just generally speaking, everything's looking pretty good over there. I was with Mr. Wilker specifically, so, yeah, we talked for a while about everything. But other than that, I haven't had any complaints about Mr. Wilker's property in the past year since my last review, so that's pretty good for him.
That's about as outstanding of a grade as you could give him. Any questions for Ian? Do we have anything else anybody would like to discuss this evening?
I do not.
No? I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.